Would you like to know the real reason your business is not the raging success you thought it would be by now? My name is Marty Dickinson with ProduceMyBook.com, and just a few days ago, I made an amazing new discovery to an age-old question that info marketers keep trying to answer for us business owners by throwing new solutions at us using Facebook ads, webinars, books, seminars, and courses. That discovery is that frogs wear only green. If you own a business or are in a sales job or you work for a marketing agency trying to get more leads and sales for your clients, you have probably bought something that was supposed to help you learn how to get more leads and sales, right? Well, have you ever bought into one of those and you went through a few steps and you realized, hey, this isn't going to work for me. This has got to be a scam. I want my money back. And then you told everybody on Facebook that the product developer is at fault, right? Or maybe you did what I did and fork out $1,000 for a course at a conference that never even made it out of the box. Who did I blame? The product developer, of course. This doesn't work. There's no way that could work, we say. But what if you gave up too soon on learning those steps that would have doubled your sales in the next month if you just stuck with it? After all, you read all the product reviews, you watched the video testimonials. It worked for everybody else except for you. It's the same reason a frog wears only green. He thinks it's the only option, so he sticks with it because it works, even if it's not working. For example, a green frog is easy prey in weeds that are brown. I know I'm getting a little bit weird now. Let's get back on track. I've been a product producer for more than 20 years in one form or another, whether it be by books or membership sites or web-based tools, and just recently I launched a course for the first time. The people I know in this business all try to make top quality products. They know they're in competition with other people, so they try to make the best product that they can. And they genuinely want to help people too. I don't know of a single product producer that purposely creates content and takes all the time that it takes to make a product for the sole purpose of creating a scam for people. So what's missing? Why are so many people failing to get the results that they should be getting and deserve? Even though there is more top quality content available than ever before in the history of the internet. Well, I don't know. I don't have the answer, so I had to find an expert in the field that does have the answer to this question. Her name is Susie Hayes from freedfromstuck.com. She is a 35-year therapist to business owners and author of the book Freed from Stuck. Dare to cross the bridge beyond grief, trauma, and self-sabotage to discover lasting change now. I knew I couldn't memorize it, so I had to read the title for you. I'd like you to watch a 30-minute interview that I hosted with Susie just a few days ago, where it was originally to a group of my subscribers and connections. And I usually keep interviews like this wrapped behind closed doors, but this is too important of a topic, so I'm leaving it open. I'm not even requiring an opt-in to get this information. The message she has is just too important that all of us need to be aware of. It affects us all who invest in learning new business techniques to help build our businesses. And it also provides valuable insight to those of us who make product for other people, like books and courses, and provide webinars and seminars and conferences and workshops even. So let's jump right into the conversation now, where I just announced the premise to Susie. And I gave her the first question. Why do we buy educational products only to fall short of implementing what is being taught? Here's Susie Hayes now from freedfromstuck.com. How do you respond to this premise that people just, if something doesn't work, they blame the seller? Is it always the seller's fault who writes the book, who makes the course, or provides the workshop, the seminar? What do you think?
It's a complex issue. And I think the simplest way to perhaps look at it is to look at it as an educator or as a coach would. If a student is not succeeding, if they're not mastering a competency, the first place to look, of course, is always, is it how I'm teaching? Is it what I'm presenting? Is it the curriculum? Is there something that I can do better? And all of us who produce products or workshops or write books, we want them to be the best quality and we want them to be effective. So I'm always open to feedback from people about what's not working for them, because I want to be able to make changes where I can make changes. That being said, knowing that always whatever I'm producing or presenting can be improved, and I'm open to that feedback, I also know that just as a student is impacted by a teacher or a learning setting, for example, a classroom or a curriculum, a student is also impacted by a variety of other factors. It can be externally with regard to family life or interaction with peers, or it can be something internally with regard to something biochemically going on for the student, or some kind of internal distress that they're distracted and not able to learn. So to your point about people blaming the seller, I think that that's natural and we have to take that feedback. But I think it's also important to recognize that often there are things going on in people's lives that cause them to not follow through, external responsibilities, or sometimes they might find another different product or the next bright shiny object that distracts them away. Or there may be actually something at a deeper level that's keeping people from really effectively applying something, which has to do more with internal beliefs about themselves or others or how the world operates. So it can be any number of those factors that cause people to invest in something and then never brush the dust off of it.
Okay, well, that answers the question why they don't even take it out of the box. What I'm curious too is, I've been doing this for a while and I'm getting older now, and I just, does age play a part in this? I mean, as people get older, are they more finicky or skeptical, or are they just out to create trouble in people's lives by buying something and then just returning it and saying, I want a refund, I want the challenge to see if I can get my refund, I'm taking you to court? I mean, whatever people will do. It just seems like there are some people out there that they buy into lots of things, but then it never gets beyond that point.
Well, I think your question, first of all, is a bit age discriminating, Marty. But that being said, I think it's another question that's sort of a yes or no. Yes, does aging impact our ability to learn something new or take in information? Yes, in the sense that if I tried to learn how to play hockey right now at this point in my life, I would probably have a great deal of difficulty mastering that skill. Yes, because of my age. That being said, also sometimes people who are older are actually in a better place to learn or develop a competency for lots of reasons. With regard to, they have more life experience, they have greater internal resources that they can draw from, they have patterns of experience that they can use in the learning process. So sometimes as we mature, our capacity for learning actually increases. So I don't think that it's not a factor necessarily that would inhibit people from the learning process. In fact, I think sometimes it can actually be an asset.
How about the doing process? Because I understand that I might be able to learn more now that I'm older, but it just seems like, I'll work on one sequence of steps in a day, and I start at like 10 o'clock in the morning, and all of a sudden it's like 2:30 and I'm still not quite done yet. Whereas I look back to 15 years ago and I would have crashed that out in 45 minutes. It seems like it's taking me longer to do things. So does age prevent that from happening as we go on?
It can, in terms of processing, but I'm going to say on the other side of that, as we mature, as we grow older, we also very often become more efficient with our resources. So I don't think, again, that age necessarily has to do with that. I think it has more to do with an internal state. And the one thing that I do observe that I think is different is that they, if they've had a lot of negative experiences, a lot of disappointment, betrayal, where they've bought into something and they've been scammed, they're less likely to invest as easily because of that experience. And so they're more cautious. They're a little bit more cautious about what they're going to invest in because they don't want to waste their time or their money or their energy.
Okay, so there's a sales copywriting lesson in there hidden between the lines of what you just said, because if the market we're going after to buy whatever it is that we're selling is in an older age group, we need to think about that. So we need to be able to say that in the words that we have on our website and our webinars and everything else, that we understand that people have been through scams and they've tried things and they haven't worked, and you kind of have to put all that aside and take a chance on this new thing. I mean, that's about all you can really say, but just sympathizing with people, knowing that they've been through that. I mean, if that's your market, it just seems like something we have to address before people actually buy.
I think that's true. And I would say that addressing that I would reframe it in the sense of presenting how the product or the workshop or the presentation is not that, meaning that this is a product of quality. This is based upon years of experience or research, whatever it is that makes that product or service or education viable. And by presenting the positive reasons as to why someone should invest in it, and if that's presented strong enough and it appeals to the needs of whatever the audience is, then they're going to be more likely to participate. And I also think that there is a whole piece about showing up authentically. People don't like to be sold, right? They don't want to feel like someone's trying to push something on them. People are really looking for quality products and information that is going to change their life, going to meet whatever the need is.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to the first when you first answered my question about my premise, because I'm really concerned about the people who are almost habitually doing this, where they buy product, they attend conferences, they go. I mean, I remember, I don't go to as many conferences as I used to. I used to be a conference junkie. I mean, I was just trying to learn everything. So I probably spent $20,000 a year or more just going to conferences and buying product like this that never got out of the box. but my curiosity is, I knew lots of people that really were just contest junkies and they never did anything. Still today, I could look them up and they're in the same place that they were before. Why bother? Why do those, can we even get through to those people as product producers, as book writers, as course providers, as workshop developers? Or is that just kind of part of the crowd that you identify them? Oh, that person's been to 6 of my workshops and they haven't done a thing so far. I'm just going to push them aside and focus on this other group. What's the better way to approach that?
Well, you're asking 2 questions. One is, why do people continue to accumulate information and not apply it? And the other is, how do you respond to those people who are accumulating information and not applying it? So let me give you an example out of my own experience. Several years ago, I had an accountability partner. He was in Chicago, and we were business accountability partners. Every week we would have phone conferences and talk about building our businesses. And he was always getting the latest and greatest product and attending the next workshop and developing the next video and whatever. And I kept saying to him, why aren't you getting this information out in front of the people? It's brilliant. People need this. Why aren't you getting out there? And he would say, well, I just need to get this. I really need to become an expert in this area. I really need to master this. And once I get this body of information and I feel comfortable in it, then I'll get out there and I'll present the information. Well, unfortunately, what happened was he died of cancer before he got that information out. And so I say to people, don't put off, if you have a gift, if you have something, to get it out there. And I believe for him, there was probably some aspect of it that had to do with that he was having difficulty allowing himself to be adequate where he was. And that was an internal struggle, and that was deeply related to, and he and I would have conversations about that. It was deeply related to messages that he had received from childhood about that he just needed to do more to be good enough to be accepted and be valued. So that has impacted me significantly, even in my own work, that I'm going to get it out there even when it's not perfect. And if I'm blocked in some way, I'm going to figure out why I'm blocking myself. Why am I not letting myself get out there and do what I know I want and need to do? So that was my first response to that question about what happens for people. It's a deep internal experience in relationship with themselves that's unresolved, that's creating an internal conflict and that's blocking them. With regard to working with people that are in that place, part of what is so important is to be able to get to what the real problem is. And as you know, I talk about this in my book, that people present a problem or an excuse or a reason. And you have to really get underneath that, because it's very often about two things, either some kind of unresolved pain or some unmet need. And until those two pieces are identified and addressed, you can purchase all of the materials, you can have all of the processes in place, you can gather information, but until you're really dealing with those pieces, it makes it virtually impossible, if not extremely difficult, to be able to move forward and apply the information.
Okay, so this is this is exactly why I didn't want this to be just a webinar, because this is I need to be able to ask you questions in this kind of format, because you really hit on a gold nugget here, and I'm not sure if everybody caught it. So we need to investigate this a little bit more. There's a combination of things that happened in the past, but the additional conflict is in what you want. So you're saying that people might, let's just narrow it down to, okay, I want more leads and sales for my business, doggone it. I'm going to do anything that it takes. So I'm going to sign up for this course, and I'm going to learn how to SEO my website better so people find me on Google. I'm going to spend a few $100s. And so they decide that they're going to get this course, and nothing happens because of something that happened years ago. They don't take action with this great information that they've come across. And you're saying part of it is because it's not in alignment with what they want.
I would say that it's not in alignment with what, very often it's not in alignment with, at a deeper level, they believe they deserve.
Aha.
Which is different, because we can know what we want, or we may want something that we believe is going to give us what we really need. But what, for example, people think, well, if I just had more money, that would solve my problems.
Yeah,
and that's a belief that is inaccurate, because it may solve some problems, and money is a good thing. We need that to live a responsible and comfortable life and to contribute. It's important, but it may not actually meet the deeper need that needs to be identified and addressed.
Right. Okay. Well, so we spent most of the time about this premise here, which is really important, because I just don't think people are thinking about this. I think it's one of those things that's really missing out there. And people are wondering, why have I been doing this for 10 years and I'm still just maybe this much more successful, or I should be this much more? And what is the missing piece? I'm buying everything, I'm going to everything, I'm hiring all these people, and still that. This is it. This is what's missing. I really feel strongly about that. I'm just not sure why anybody's talking about it. So I want to transition here to the how. What can we do about it? People on this call, what can we do? The first thing that comes to mind is, now that I know what a problem might be, I might be thinking, sure sounds like a lot of work. I don't know if I want to invest in myself that much. Here we come back to the want, things that you want. It's just easier to stay green and be that green frog that doesn't know any different. It's safer. I don't have to invest any money to do it. I don't have to add more time to my day to make it happen because I'm already busy enough. So how do you respond to the question people have, whether it's just better to stay where I'm at, or let's make a pivotal moment change here and do something about it?
Well, we seek change because something inside of us knows that something needs to change, right? If we didn't experience a desire to change or a need to change, we wouldn't change, because we have an internal homeostasis that keeps us comfortable with what's familiar. It's only when we're in pain or discomfort, or we see something that we really desire, that our brain lights up and says, I really want that, and I'm going to do whatever I need to do to get that. So until we attend to the blocks that are there with regard to pain or unmet needs, or sometimes it's even loss or trauma or grief that's unresolved, we have to attend to that before we can really move forward. And we have to be able to address the fear at the level of where the fear really is. And again, very often it has to do more with our relationship with ourselves than it has to do with circumstances or even relationships with other people, or in the case of what we're talking about, a product or a workshop, that it doesn't really have to do with the product itself. It doesn't have to do with really that external factor.
Let's say there's somebody on this call, they're listening in, and they're saying, that's me. Now, you as well as I know, next step, they're going to go to Facebook and check in on messages that people have put up there, posts people have put up, and they're going to see 4 or 5 ads for whatever it is. Just the fact that we're having this call, the AI out there is probably picking up that we're talking about this subject. So who knows? You might have ads all over the place coming up for this topic. How would you advise someone that once they understand what you are saying, that they need to attend to something first before they go forward with things? Would you suggest that they just stop buying anything until they fix that? Where does that happen in the sequence? Or should they keep learning and at the same time investigate what's, something that happened in their childhood or whatever? Where does that happen in the sequence?
Well, you know that in the structure of the book, I talk about crossing the bridge, and that there are 5 elements that are required to really create change and sustain change. And so we've been talking about identifying the problem or the pain, the unmet need. There's also getting a clear picture of where we're going that is important. And then there is the resolution of the real problem, which is the internal work around grief and loss and trauma. There's also the piece around developing the strategy. And then there is the piece that is required that once you reach a goal, for there to be accountability. And the reality is that very often in the process of change, of development, whether it's our own internal working or the development of a product, that all of those things are going on simultaneously. So if you just stop and say, well, I've got to deal with these historical issues or these emotional issues before I move forward, that's not realistic. You still have to look at the piece with regard to developing your strategy or developing your materials or refining your product. You still have to do that work. And you also have to continue to work and refine what I call the point of destination or the discovery of destiny, which is really refining what it is that you're wanting, where you want to go. So actually all of those things are happening at the same time, more often than not. It's not a clean cut. It's, even though it's a metaphor of crossing a bridge, it's not starting on one end and getting to the other end. It's not that simple. But all of those things have to happen simultaneously to continue to make progress.
Okay, and that brings in my final question for you, because I'm I can see how this could be so complex. The thought just came to mind that if a person was to try to handle this all on their own, it would take years worth of effort to try to do that, with not even the chance of potentially fixing the problem. So I guess the question is, how does a person determine whether this is something they can do on their own just by buying a book, as good as Freed from Stuck is? They could go out and get that, but where do you make that crossover? I can just research on my own, go to blog posts, learn about this past issue that I have, versus finding a professional in the field to help you one-on-one to work through something like this. Where is that crossover?
The crossover is the unconscious mind, in that first of all, none of us function in isolation. So to feel that we can usually solve something like this on our own by reading a book is not realistic, because there's so much that goes on for us at an unconscious level. And honestly, most people, if they could resolve it on their own, they'd resolve it, right? They would just do it.
Yeah.
But the fact that people try and they can't accomplish whatever, it's because there's something going on at a deeper level. And very often it's out of conscious awareness. It's below the surface. It's something that they can't see. So I think it's viable, wherever you're at in that process, to have ongoing professional support, whether it is from a psychotherapeutic standpoint, or if it's, I do hypnosis with people as well, whether it's from a coaching standpoint or an accountability standpoint. Any of those resources are viable in business development, and if we don't have those pieces in place, we're really limiting our effectiveness. As a psychotherapist, I have my own psychotherapist. As a coach, I have my own coach. As a person that values accountability, I have an accountability peer group. So all of those pieces are in place for me to continue to move forward, because I see them as viable investments if I want to move my business forward as easily as it can move forward, because there are going to be blind spots. We all have blind spots. And so we need other people's eyes and ears and perspectives and input and experience for us to continue to move forward.
Oh, that's great. Well, that's like a whole morning's worth of content in 30 minutes. And I'm going to end our session here, because I like to start on time, I like to end on time. We're only 4 minutes over, so that is just perfect. And I will suggest to our viewers, Freed from Stuck by Susie Hayes. You can also go to freedfromstuck.com and find her as well there, and take the next step with her if you feel that she can help you to get beyond this point and make a pivotal change. It's really a good book, and it's not a huge read. She's taken a very complex subject and molded it down to something that you can use in a series of steps and at least be introduced to her Freed method, F-R-E-E-D, and then you'll know how she works and what she does with people. So Susie, great job. Here we are, morning on a Friday. You could be doing a lot of things, and you took the time out of your day, and hope it wasn't too exhausting for you, because we got into some pretty deep stuff there.
Not at all. I was just warming up, Marty.
Yeah, great. And I'll just say, you got to make a choice if you're going to be that green frog or not. You don't need to just wear green. There are lots of opportunities out there, lots of options. And we'll close this session off now. This is Marty Dickinson with Produce My Book saying bye for now.